Hello everyone, welcome to the Green Man channel. Hope you're doing good and well this Saturday. So time for an album review and time for me to review the latest album from the progressive death metal band Horrendous and their highly anticipated release Ontological Mysterium, which came out yesterday on the 18th of August via Season of Mist, and the album is 9 tracks and 37 minutes in length. And so this is the follow-on to 2018's fantastic album Idol, an album which climbed right up to number 2 on my Albums of the Year list for that year. And they crammed a lot into that album. And you know what? Once again, in an even shorter time, 37 minutes, the band I think have crammed even more into this album, Ontological Mysterium. The album is this kind of twisting labyrinth of arrangements, melodic moments, interesting dual guitar stuff going on as well at times, building rhythms, good climaxes. This album has just about the lot packed into its 37 minutes. At times, it may even on the first few listens be a touch intimidating because there's just so much going on. But for me, Horrendous, they're just about that right level of challenging, not super challenging, over the top technical, but they rein it in enough that there's enough in their songs to always make you just about curious enough to think, hang on, that sounded really good. I'm going to go back and listen to that again. And that is the effect of this album for me, is I've given it quite a few listens now, and each time I listen to it, it doesn't stop getting better. It keeps getting better every time. And maybe that's the Horrendous effect, or it's certainly the effect of Ontological Mysterium. So, something about Horrendous that I think makes them a little bit unique. I think that, yes, they do draw clearly on influences from classic death metal bands like Death and the more progressive jazzy kind like Cynic, for example. But something I think makes them quite distinctive is that delivery of harsh vocals. And I think it's from Damien Herring in the band, where he is barking out these gnarly vocals, the delivery of each word of his kind of vocal lines. It's just like, I can't think of too many death metal bands with this vocal style, and whenever I hear that, I immediately know it's Horrendous. It's what kind of makes them distinctive, as well as their own unique kind of arrangements to a lot of their tracks. So he kind of has this way of just kind of going, well, who do we trust? It's kind of punchy, but not like a lot of death growls, which are more guttural. It's kind of all like, feels like it's quite high up, and he's delivering them in this really barking kind of way. And I think that's what makes them quite distinctive to me from a lot of other death metal bands. Anyway, let me know in the comments if you know anyone with that kind of vocal style. But to me, it's quite unique, and it's what always makes me recognise Horrendous as a band. So with this album, they are pushing themselves, well, for me, into death metal royalty here. I mean, after Idol, which if that wasn't good enough for you and you get this, I mean, what more do the band need to do, really, to be honest, to start to be recognised as one of the greatest death metal bands in the modern scene at the moment? So let's go into the tracks a little bit more of this really good album. So you've got stuff, you've got that Blaze introductory track. After the Blaze, you get Chrysopia, which is where the album really takes off. I mean, it's the second track. You get lots of different phases to that track. It's always keeping surprising. Like I say, in your early listens to this song, it didn't sink in for me until a few listens, actually, this one. But once it does, it's really great. Pretty long opening track on the album, it's about 7 minutes, but it's a really good taster as well for the rest of this album. Neon Leviathan sort of explodes at you, it really does, with this frenzy of bass doodling and really hurried guitar rhythms all happening kind of all at once. It feels like it's a really short track that squeezes so much into it. It's almost bursting at the seams with its frantic nature, and it's an absolutely killer song on the album. One of my favourites, probably, actually, comes to think of it, Aurora Neoterica. A bit more of a melodic break in the album. It's quite nice, actually. Sort of reminds me of a sound of maybe, actually, 70s and 80s prog rock bands in a way, with the slowness, but the sort of eerie feel of it as well. You get stuff like Preterition Hymn, I mean, which is quite an extraordinary track as well, which has this start and stop guitar dueling, and then it takes a break for those gnarly vocals of Damien Herring to come in once again into the mix here. Cult of Shard Oa is one of my personal favourite songs on this particular album. It has just that range of dynamics. This band are always being creative, they're always doing something new. They are just slightly varying this riff in this track, I think, and it's kind of always, again, keeping the track sounding fresh. It's never boring, but a lot is packed into it in that short time frame. Ontological Mysterium is another song I wanted to talk about briefly because that is more of a trademark Horrendous track. It has a guitar line which is so much more to me trademark Horrendous. But it's still quite challenging if you listen to the whole thing. It's still, but it's got a bit more of a hook to it. You know, this was the track. I can see why they maybe released it as a pre-release single because, you know, this is a bit more immediate than some of the other stuff that's kind of on this album. Then the last track, which is The Death Knell Ringeth. Oh my goodness. If you're not already blown away by this album, the last track will do the business. It's the knockout blow for me. It's really fantastic. Couldn't think of a better way to close this album. It actually goes, you know, the guitarists get thicker and thrashier for this song. But I think that's a really good way to end this album, you know, really bring a good, harsh, aggressive finish to this blinder. And I really like it when you think the track's coming to an end and then they just throw these magnificent riffs at you and great guitar solos as well, and you just get the perfect finish to this album, which is close to perfect. I don't have much to say in criticism of Ontological Mysterium. The only thing I would say is that it's like, you know, this giant meat feast of progressive death metal. There's so much of it. Like, you're trying to digest all of that meat in this meat feast at a rapid pace. You know, if you try and do it too quickly, you might find it all a bit much. But if you give it time, you realise that this is one delicious meat feast of an album, one that you ought to go check out a few more times. Even if you're doubting it a bit, I would suggest just maybe giving it just that one more listen and just seeing if you start to feel the power of Ontological Mysterium. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. As always, hope you enjoyed the review. Don't forget to click like and subscribe and all that business. Otherwise, until next time from me, bye for now.